Hey, everybody, this is Bart Bettiga with the National Tile Contractors Association and the publisher of TileLetter magazine. And I'm really happy to have with me today Luke Miller from the popular blog Tile Money. And Luke, you're going to be our guest in TileLetter magazine in our one-to-one, and you're my guest in our interview today. And I appreciate you being with us. So thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Bart. It's a pleasure.
So give me a little bit of your background. How did you get into our trade, and then what made you conceptualize Tile Money? And tell me a little bit about it for the people that don't know. It's becoming a very popular program, but tell me a little bit about what made you get into Tile Money and what Tile Money really is and what it's all about.
Okay, you want me? So when I was 17, I got into the industry as an apprentice, or as we called it back then, a helper, right? Mixing thin set, the whole traditional. That was in Tucson, Arizona. So for the next 7-8 years, I worked my way up through the apprenticeship program. I found myself in California, and at the age of 25, it was in 2008 when I went to receive or take the test to be a California licensed tile contractor, the C54. And so that's when I became a contractor. And that's also when I realized there was so much more to being a contractor, a small business owner, than just knowing the trade, right? So that was kind of my first reality check. Hey, I might be able to know how to build this shower or install this tile, because that's all I had been focused on for nearly 9 years at that point. But I had zero training in being a small business owner, making business decisions. So for the next, it would have been 8 years, I struggled, had ups and downs, had some successes, had some failures. But most of the failures I noticed were surrounded around the business side of things, not the installation. So that's when I got the wheels turning, and I started to search for business knowledge. And I found a lot of relief when I started listening to podcasts, because it was so easy. I could just put them on my way to work, on my way home, even on certain jobs all day long. And I would listen to these interviews, and it was typically other industries. I mean, anything from real estate to plumbing to you name it. And I would get business advice, and I started applying that advice to my business, and it made a huge change. So I had the idea to start the Tile Money podcast because I searched for a tile specific podcast, and I didn't find it. So in 2000, what year is it? In 2019, September of 2019, I started the Tile Money podcast, and it was received well. And so I decided to kind of continue down that road. We met later that year, or early 2019, in Las Vegas, Bart, and that's when yourself and Jim Olson said that NTCA would be interested in kind of backing my efforts, and that was the beginning of the Tile Money podcast.
So what have you learned now? I mean, so you were into you were a podcast customer, you saw that value, you launched a podcast. What have you learned about tile contractors in the last 2 years of trying to get this program up and running, that has led you to where you're at today? And where do you see Tile Money going in the future?
So I think what I've learned is we're all so similar. It's almost like your relatives. If you're a tile contractor, you have a lot of commonalities. I mean, we have a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, things of this nature, and we all have that commonality of tile, and it shapes you into the person you become. And when you meet each other, you can typically have hours of conversation and become fast friends right from the start. But I did my suspicions were confirmed that a lot of my fellow contractors were suffering in their business. It, you know, we've taken some hits over the years, and since it is, we do spend, you know, typically between 5 to 8 years as an apprentice before you would move on to a journeyman or whatever other advancement you might call it, depending on what part of the country you're in. But because we spend so much time, you know, perfecting those hand-to-eye coordination, we've forgotten to focus on the most important aspect, which is the business. So I've learned, you know, that it is a needed topic. It's a very needed and desired topic to focus on the business. So that's why, you know, shortly after we met the next year, within 12 months, I had closed down my business in California. It's one of those things where, yes, I saw an opportunity, but I felt something pulling me that direction, and I felt like it was my chance to do something larger than just run a successful tile business, which is, of course, a privilege in itself. And you know, I was working on increasing my impact on my local community, but I saw this as a way to impact the greater tile contractor community, really worldwide. And so that's why I ran with it so hard. And it's been amazing. I've had to learn, you know, teach myself different ways to work because my work is entirely different now. And we're going to keep growing Tile Money. It's becoming a valuable resource for tile contractors everywhere. So we're not going to stop with just the podcast. We're working on business courses that we're developing in the background based on our interactions with tile contractors, like in a Facebook group or, you know, just on the phone. So we're developing business courses. We're working on digital assets, and in the future, we would like to get back into the in-person, almost like a small business trade shows, which we had one of them, and we were hoping to do more this year, but we decided to kind of take a step back because of the world, you know, condition right now, with people not really wanting to travel as much and things. And we're just using that to strengthen our digital presence right now.
So, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned apprenticeship because, you know, NTCA has worked hard on on apprenticeship guidelines and training and the technician side of this industry. And it's interesting because when we offer a lot of content when it comes to technical seminars, we tend to get a lot of participation, and then sometimes we'll offer a business seminar or an estimate and it's not as much, right? So at the end of the day, you know, this business training seems to be essential, but how do we make the people aware of how important business training is when really they were raised to be technicians, right? In a lot of ways. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and you know, Bart, it's a good point, right? Like a lot of us aren't, you know, really running to the business seminars, and maybe, you know, so I think the success of the podcast has really been that it is so easy to just plug it in and play it. I mean, they just on your phone, you know, for free. And I think that's been the success. So I think that's the direction, is as the world gets more and more complicated and busier, we need to make things and our messaging simpler and almost, you know, briefer, but more frequent, right? So go ahead.
Sorry, Luke. Do you think, I actually have a theory that one of the reasons why you're being successful is because you look, talk, act, and you are like them. A lot of times when we've done business sessions, it's been from business speakers or guys from general contracting or from general business communities. But if you can bring business content from the tile contractor's perspective and then bring other peers in that have success in running their business, I think you probably stand a chance to really get that interaction. Is that the backbone of what you're trying to do, is really show them, you know, that you're like them and your peers, and you guys can share that kind of information with each other and help each other?
I think that's a fair assessment. I think that is a large part of my success is you know, I've always said I'm the epitome of a tile contractor, you know, and I hope I don't offend anybody by saying that, but but I really did start this at 17 working with my hands, and we didn't, you know, we didn't do wood, we didn't do carpet, we did tile.
Yep.
And you know, that's what my focus was on. I've had, you know, so I think you do bring a valid point there. They can relate to myself, and I can kind of talk about tile like we talk about it on the job site.
So just a couple things. So what are the most popular or engaging threads? You know, what are the financial hot buttons that you've seen over the last 2 years when you start talking about tile money? I mean, what are the topics? Are they, you know, accounting? Are they pricing? Are they estimating? You know, what has created a buzz on tile money when you've hit these things, or what has touched a nerve where guys have really expressed opinions, if you will?
Well, first and foremost, by quite a stretch is pricing, how to price our work. I mean, that is the most popular topic, and as well as the most controversial topic. And so pricing our work, and then right now, hiring is probably second. How to attract and hire employees. I mean, it's April of 2021, and everybody's never been, you know, hasn't been this busy for years, and they've had nearly a decade of busy, you know, being busy and being in demand. So employees would probably be number two, and then I think number three would probably be, you know, the thing I hope, and kind of how I want to steer it is business owner mindset.
Yeah.
In other words, you know, taking, you know, how to grow that business beyond being self-employed, and really expand the business to almost run without the business owner one day. That, in my opinion, that should be our goal. Is, you know, that business, it should be an asset for whoever, you know, to kind of step in and manage it for you. And so I think those three topics are some of the most important.
What about basic accounting, Luke, in the sense that if they have an accountant that they're working with, but if you're an owner, you really do need to have some understanding so that you're interacting with that accountant, right? And making sure that you're understanding what they're telling you, because when you talk about pricing, it's all related. Because, you know, they want to know what to charge, but are they even aware of what they're making as a profit? And that's, you know, where I'm wondering if accounting is also a topic that that you guys address.
It's a very important topic. You're absolutely right. I think when, you know, and that's what we've attempted to do with the Facebook group, is show them how to arrive at their own numbers with accounting. So we are having those discussions. All too often, though, somebody says, I have a shower, how much should I charge for it? And we, the moderators and myself, every chance we get, and a lot of the community, frankly, will just come in and say, you know, and we'll walk them through trying, you know, it doesn't always happen like that, but we'll in an ideal situation, we'll walk them through how to approach and gather their own numbers, right? So those conversations are happening, Bart, but unfortunately they're not happening enough. In other words, the questions people ask aren't, how do you arrive at the proper number to be a profitable business, to stay in business and expand? They're, you know, the conversation gets started with, hey, I have this backsplash, what do you guys think I should charge? And that's the wrong approach, but we're doing our best to steer the conversation back towards, you need to run your numbers because your business is different than mine.
Well, that question, you know, might be the question they need help with, but if your moderators and yourself can really bring them back to the concept of profitability, that's where to start. I mean, that's a great segue. Well, I'll tell you, we can't compliment you enough for the concept, not only of getting into the blog world first, really one of the first ones in the tile industry, but more importantly, hitting a component of our industry that is so essential, which is profitability for our trade and for tile contractors. Before I let you go, you mentioned one of your topics that they talk about is hiring quality. So what can we do through Tile Money, through what do you think is an answer to recruiting, making young people excited about tile, and why would they enter our trade? What can we do on our end to support the tile contractors to help them promote their trade, to hire people, men or women, of all colors, to come into our industry?
Sure. I'm, you know, I tend to be pretty positive on this front. I see a lot of positive interactions happening in, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or some other social, there's always going to be a new thing, right? Like TikTok. I see a lot of kind of really neat or catchy, like videos and good topics that are attracting a younger crowd, or hopefully, in my opinion. So I think it's happening kind of organically, and everybody's having a part of that. Where I would like to come in with the NTCA is just encouraging these kind of influencers to do it, to really do it right from the beginning. When they start to hire, I always encourage them, come into the Facebook group, join the NTCA, because you can start to have conversations with folks who are, been doing this very successfully for a long time, in some cases generations. Just the other day, we had a discussion on hiring employees and training them, right? And this individual kind of proposed that we needed to kind of rewrite how we train people. And my advice was, why don't we look to some of the companies who have been successfully attracting, hiring, and training and retaining, because that's kind of the ultimate goal, is to retain those employees, give them a career, not just a launch point to start another kind of business that might fail. So that's what I would say is, for those influencers, if you're getting traction and you're starting to grow your business, join the NTCA, join the Facebook group, and ask questions, ask lots of questions, and start doing it right from the beginning, because you want to retain those employees. So, that's all we can do, is just keep encouraging one another, right?
That's exactly right. Well, thanks, Luke. On that note, we encourage you to continue this program. We really are excited about Tile Money and where you're taking it. So congratulations on that. And thanks for being our guest on TileLetter 1-to-1. And you have yourself a great day.
Thank you, Bart. It's a pleasure working with you. I appreciate your support.